Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time it is a review of the 2019 monster movie Godzilla, King of the Monsters. This is a sequel to the 2014 film Godzilla, which I personally found a goddamn disappointment. I thought it was extremely dull, boring, really poorly paced, had some of the worst human characters in recent memory, which makes all the interviews with the cast that were posted on the internet pretty ironic because they're all talking about how important it is to have likable and engaging characters in a movie, and they're referencing Jaws. And Godzilla 2014 didn't have any of those. It had one character, Bryan Cranston's character, but the movie made the grave mistake by killing him off 30 minutes into the movie and leaving you with a bunch of fucking cannon fodder for the rest of the film. And then, not if that isn't bad enough, the monsters aren't much. The Mutos just seem like Cloverfield monster ripoffs. The kind of, honestly, they kind of feel like the Dollar Tree version of Cloverfield monsters. So it's like, oh, well, we couldn't get the rights for Cloverfield, but here's here's something else. Here's the Mutos. And then Godzilla, when he's in the movie, which isn't much, he doesn't really do a lot of badass things other than the last little bit where he uh, annihilates one of the monsters with his radioactive fire breath. Other than that, really not much of anything. And to make matters worse, the film cuts away from most of the fights, so it leaves you with radioactive blue balls. So yeah, I'm not really a fan of Godzilla 2014. But I did like the trailers for this. I liked the trailers. They had a epic size and scope to them. I like the fact that Michael Dougherty was attached to it, the guy who did Trick or Treat, the horror anthology film, which I've heard a lot of good things about. And I know it's shocking, Mr. Tales from the Crypt, Mr. Horror Anthology, and I still haven't seen that movie. I'm waiting to watch that and review it sometime this October. Because hey, it's Trick or Treat. It's a Halloween movie. But then again, so I'll get back on track. Sorry about that derailment there. Let's get back to the movie. So, yeah, I was curious about the film. I liked the trailers. Millie Bobby Brown was in the cast, and I love her in Stranger Things. And you have Vera Farmiga, who I really enjoy as an actress, and really appreciate and really like her performance and her character in the Conjuring franchise. And it's just one of those films that looked like it had potential. It actually rose pretty high on my most anticipated films list of 2019. And I saw it in the theater a while back. And it's a movie that I like, but I don't love. It's a film that I honestly feel is a tad bit disappointing, but not as much as the 2014 film. This to me is a decent. Decent's not really given enough credit. For me, I personally found the film to be a solid above average sequel and monster movie. I personally felt that there was not nearly enough monster mayhem in the movie, especially with Godzilla. There's a good chunk of the movie where he's just recuperating, like he's out for the count, and you're waiting for him to get charged back up again and get into a massive battle for the ages. But unlike Godzilla 2014, when Godzilla did get involved in some battles, I actually thought it was a lot of fun. And there's a lot more emphasis on monsters in this than there was in Godzilla, because Godzilla 2014 had too much of a focus on its incredibly boring human characters. Here, that's not the case, which I definitely appreciated. The direction by Michael Dougherty, I honestly think, is quite good. I don't think he is the problem at all with this film. I think he does a wonderful job with the visuals and the size and the scope, and you could definitely tell that he has a passion for these kaiju films, for these giant monster movies. I really didn't have a whole lot of introduction to Godzilla other than a handful of Godzilla movies. I'm not one of those G fans who's seen every single Godzilla movie. I've only seen the original Godzilla 1985, Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, the 1998 film, the 2014 film, and now King of the Monsters. So I don't have as much of a, I guess, bone to pick, or scales, so to speak, to pick with this particular movie in terms of it being uh, accurate to the Godzilla mythos, so to speak. But I do feel that from what I've been reading and for what I've heard about a lot of things in this movie, there's a lot of callbacks and there's a lot of things that fans of the franchise can appreciate. So it definitely seemed like this film came from a place of love, unlike the first movie, which just kind of felt like, let's just do another Godzilla movie because it's an established property and we just want to make money. That's kind of what it felt. It was a very soulless movie. This had more of a heart to it, and I definitely appreciated that. And you could definitely feel that with Michael Dougherty's direction. Like, I really do feel he did a really good job with it. The script by Dougherty and Zach Shields, it's there. Sadly, this film suffers from similar problems as Godzilla 2014 when it comes to its human characters. The human characters in this are very weak. Now, I understand from a lot of people who have watched the Godzilla films and the whole franchise, weak characters are kind of a common thread with Godzilla movies. But that doesn't mean that you have to have weak characters again in this movie. We already dealt with that in the 2014 film, and that was to the film's detriment. Here, we honestly didn't need that, and sadly, that's really what happened again, but in a different way. Kyle Chandler, he plays Dr. Mark Russell. I really wasn't... He was okay, but like there was nothing about the performance or the character that really stuck with me. He was just there. Vera Farmiga as Dr. Emma Russell. This is a very confusing character, and the writing for this character is quite perplexing, because you're like, what are they doing here? Like, you're making this character into a villain. She's working with the evil forces, so to speak. She's working with the side of evil, and then by the end of the movie, it's trying to be like, oh no, she's actually good, and we should feel something for her when she sacrifices herself for the good of humanity, and it's just like, I feel nothing, because the character is so poorly written in terms of how muddled she is. It's a very muddled character. Millie Bobby Brown as her daughter Madison, she's fine, but she's really honestly a very weak character in terms of character development. Millie Bobby Brown isn't given a whole lot to work with. She does the best that she can, but the character doesn't really leap off the screen. And the character seems like she has like an infinite amount of cheats, like an infinite amount of cheat codes. Like she's able to do all these different things and all these things that involve like a lot of thought and a lot of, I'm trying to think of the right word. A lot, things that are a lot more difficult than they seem in the movie. And she's able to just do it without any problem whatsoever. And it just seems like she's just there to move the plot along in certain aspects, and that's really about it. So she's a plot device, nothing more. Bradley Whitford, I enjoyed as Dr. Rick. He was a lot of fun. Apparently, he was loosely modeled after Rick from Rick and Morty. I didn't really see it, but okay. It was fun to see Bradley Whitford, and I liked his character because I thought he had charisma. He had something about him that was entertaining. It wasn't bland. It wasn't boring or wasn't confusing. Sally Hawkins, played by who plays Vivian Graham. Yeah, I'm not too big on her, to be honest. She was there. Charles Dance, he was slithery as always as the villain, or at least one of the villains, as Alan Jonah. but he's given, honestly, no room to slither around. Charles Dance is a phenomenal actor when it comes to playing villains. He's great casting, and he doesn't really he doesn't get a whole lot of screen time to really amp up the villainy, to really create a persona and a character that you love to hate. So to me, it was a waste. It's a waste of Charles Dance and his talents. Thomas Middleditch gets a middle finger from me. I hated his character in this film. He was awful as Dr. Sam Coleman. He wasn't funny. He's a comic relief, but commits the cardinal sin, for comic relief in a film. He's not funny. He's annoying. He's not funny. There's a joke he makes that's honestly pretty insulting to Godzilla fans, where he insinuates that Ghidorah sounds like gonorrhea. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you're really going to go there? You're going to go that low? Yeah, I hated that character. For me, he took up way too much of the screen time early on and should have been killed off. Why didn't he die early on? Like, I would have actually applauded in the theater. Like, thank God I don't have to listen to his bad stand-up material anymore. Yet Aisha Hinds, who plays Colonel Diane Foster, she's given a big role, but not much to do with it. David Strathairn's also in this, as like one of the admirals of like the Navy, but other guy doesn't give a whole lot. Doesn't get a whole lot of screen time. O'Shea Jackson Jr. is there too. Zhang Ziyi, she's Dr. Eileen Shen. I guess she also plays Ling Shen, so she plays both. She's there. I'm not. I wasn't like, oh, she's amazing or anything, but she was there. She was okay. Ken Watanabe, I really liked his performance in this, and I liked his character. I thought his character was stronger in this than the first film, than the 2014 film. He was given more to do, and there's a lot of stuff involving his character that I thought was quite powerful. His spoilers, the sacrifice to save Godzilla, I thought was poignant. And I thought that was easily the most effective emotional moment in the film. But yeah, the script is just, because it throws you right into things super, early, not a whole lot of build-up, not a whole lot of character development, throws you into stuff that's going on at Monarch, with... now, I don't know if it's with Monarch, with Dr. Emma Russell, and then she has her turn, and the whole plan apparently is to unleash the monsters so they can balance the world, and Godzilla has to fend off the main baddie in this instance, which is King Ghidorah, and there's a lot of fun action bits in this. And it's really nice to see monsters like Rodan and stuff like that, and King Ghidorah on the screen. And there's some really great visuals. This film is, like I said, it's visually spectacular. The trailers really were stunning, and the film itself is definitely a stunner when it comes to that. Mothra. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Mothra. It was nice to see Rodan, but it's equally, if not even more, nice to see Mothra. Mothra is beautiful in this movie. Just a beautiful rendition of that particular monster or being, so to speak, or creature. Really, creature. Beautiful creature. Yeah, I thought the visual effects were quite impressive of the monsters. The score, I love. The score by Bear McCreary is honestly the best score I've heard this year. It's a fantastic score. Cannot recommend it enough. It's jam-packed with genuine emotion. It elevates the film above average by itself because it's such a phenomenal score. This is another aspect of the film where you can tell it's a labor of love. Bear loves the Godzilla movies. You can tell he's a huge fan because apparently I did some research. A lot of the cues that are in this movie are actually from other Godzilla films. So he incorporates elements that are his own for the score, but also borrows elements and bits and pieces from other scores from the Godzilla films and incorporates them into the score and creates a really wonderful mix of music. It's a great score. I love it. I even really like the remix of Blue Oyster Cult's Godzilla at the end credits. That was a lot of fun too. Definitely when it comes to the sequences of the monsters, when it needs to have a bigger size and scope or feel like it's a spectacle, it definitely feels that way. Not only because of the visuals, but because of McCreary's score, which elevates those visuals to a completely different level. That it would not have been up there without his score. So for me, I hope he gets an Oscar nod for this score because I legitimately do feel it's that good. It's a fantastic score. One of the better scores I've heard in a long time. It reminded me a lot of older scores from the 90s and 2000s. The type of music that I really missed hearing in films. Because music is as every bit of a important factor and piece in a successful film as the visuals are. And I feel that's honestly being lost in a lot of films nowadays, and that's definitely not the case here. Cinematography by Lawrence Sher is gorgeous. I love the use of the colors and everything. There's some particular shots in this that I think are just jaw-dropping. The one with King Ghidorah on top of the mountain with the cross in the background, and there's lava, and the skies are red, and yeah, that's a very ominous and striking image. And there's a lot of different shots in the film like that. The editing by Roger Barton, Richard Pearson, and Bob Duskay. The editing in this at times is kind of choppy. I think it's kind of the intent, but it kind of looks like they had Godzilla himself try to edit it with one of his claws, which isn't really the best decision to make. But there are other times where it looks fine. But yeah, I think the editing could have used a little more work. The film is like 132 minutes, and for the most part, it has a decent enough pacing, but there are moments where it kind of drags a little bit. And a large part is because when you get back to the human characters, you don't really give a shit, except for Ken Watanabe and maybe Bradley Whitford, and I guess in a small way, Millie Bobby Brown or Kyra Chandler. I will give Kyle Chandler and Millie Bobby Brown this. They're infinitely times more likable than Ford Brody and whoever his family was in Godzilla 2014. That's not saying much. They're still bland, palatable at best characters. And when it comes to the monster battles, yeah, I mean, Godzilla is out of action for a good chunk of the movie, and it's called King of the Monsters, and there's a great scene where the monsters bow to Godzilla at the end of the movie, but it kind of feels a little limp because you don't have that grand moment where Godzilla takes on all these monsters and kicks all their asses. So I definitely agree with that criticism where that would have been nice to see. But that being said, when he kicks Ghidorah's ass, he does it in a very memorable and fun way, at least for me personally. I don't think he got too much help. I thought he held his own pretty well. He needed a little bit of help, but it wasn't like Mothra really did a whole lot other than web a Ghidorah to a building and sacrifice herself for Godzilla. And speaking of that, there's another example of like the attention to detail in this movie, which is really a welcome sight to see. When Godzilla is using his new like attack, because he's all super irradiated, and he's using this blast that he emits from his body to attack Ghidorah. You actually see the outline of Mothra. So I thought that was really a nice touch, the kind of thing that could be overlooked, but when you look at it it just shows you how much compassion the filmmakers had for Godzilla and this mythos and this franchise and these characters, these creatures, which in a lot of ways are characters. Um, but the script at times it has a lot of moments in it with in terms of the plot that just feel like really they feel honestly pretty lazy. They come across as very lazy and uninspired. Like the stuff with Millie Bobby Brown stealing the Orca machine right with no problems whatsoever. I don't know why this terrorist organization doesn't have security for this extremely important device that they went through all this trouble to steal, and they just literally just leave it on the counter for anyone to steal. She steals it, gets out of the facility way too easily because I guess she just pushes the doors open and leaves. Then goes to goes to Fenway Park to emit the signal to stop the monsters from attacking the United States, and she gets through all security and military personnel and all this stuff just like that. I can't snap, but if I could, I'd snap. She gets through all of that without any trouble, and that's what I'm talking about with her character. It just seems like she's just there to move the plot along, and even in the end, she's there to be like, oh no, she's still in there in the middle of the monster fight. We need to get her. It's just, I don't know. It's one of those things that I definitely feel that her character could have been fleshed out more and could have been written better, as could majority of the human characters, to be honest, in this, other than Ken Watanabe's character that he reprises from the first movie, Dr. Ishiro Serizawa. But yeah, it's a film that, like I said, I like it. I like Godzilla King of the Monsters. I don't love it. It would be in my top films of 2019 for sure. I kind of felt the same way about this as I kind of did with Detective Pikachu. Both films have really nice visuals. Both films have some nice action set pieces. But both films kind of have some weak characters and a script that isn't quite as grand or as well thought out as it could have been. But that being said, it's a movie that I do recommend if you're a fan of Godzilla. If you were curious about it from the trailer, I definitely do recommend you giving it a look. And I don't really know what else to say about Godzilla King of the Monsters. Other than, I mean, I want to mention the monster fight again at the end. I mean, that was a really crowd-pleasing moment when Godzilla faces off against Ghidorah and just kicks his ass in just such a epic fashion. I like the fake out that they had where it kind of looked like, oh no, Ghidorah's still alive, and then Godzilla just eats his fucking head like a boss. That was a pretty awesome moment. So this is a film that is intermittently awesome. But there are other times where it's not as awesome as it could have been. But that being said, still a fun movie, still a solid sequel and a solid monster movie. Could have had more monster mayhem. Human characters could have used a lot more personality, charisma, more for them to do in order for them to resonate more with the audience. Definitely would have improved the pacing in that regard. But despite my issues with it, I do like the film, and I will probably pick it up on home video when it comes out. Yeah, so I don't know what else to say about Godzilla King of the Monsters, except if I were to rate it out of 5 stars, I give Godzilla King of the Monsters 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it's a solid above average monster basher. Anyway, thank you for watching my review, and as always, I will see you later. See ya.